Hello guys and welcome. This is going to be my second guide for World of Warcraft. Today I'm going to be looking at the Frost Mage. I just want to start by thanking everybody for watching my last video and all the kind comments that I got. It really was a surprise when I wasn't expecting to get that many. So please do keep them coming. Any recommendations are also taken really well. If you'd like to recommend any class, say you play a class and you want me to do a guide on it, I can play pretty much every class in the game. So if you want me to do a guide on a specific class, just put it in the comments and I'll happily make a video on that. And also just let me know what kind of content you want to see, but we'll get started with the video. I just wanted to get that one out of the way. So we're going to start off with the Frost Mage. I'm going to do the other two Mage specs as well as the other two Warlock specs, but I thought I'd do Mage now just to cover a wider variety. So we're going to start with the pros and cons of the Frost Mage. Now the Frost Mage is one of the best DPS in the game, just like the Affliction Warlock. It is one of the best DPS in the game. Especially for kind of cleavy single target bosses. Okay, so you're going to see on Demonic Inquisition, it's not that great because of the debuff that you get when you attack the bosses. You'll know what I mean. You can't really always attack the two bosses, but on Demonic Inquisition you're going to see Frost Mage do huge burst. On Goroth, Frost Mage's single target is absolutely incredible. And all throughout the entire raid, Frost Mage is always going to be a solid top tier spec. It really shines on bosses like Demonic or Fallen Avatar, where there's always two targets to attack, but it can also do top tier single target DPS too. So yeah, it's got incredible burst and really good cleave. The only con is that the AoE is pretty bad. When I say pretty bad, it's only got one AoE move, which really isn't really there for AoE. It's kind of there to proc your, kind of there to reduce the cooldown of your frozen orb. But we'll get more into that now. We're going to go into the talents really quick. So with the first level 15 talents, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go for Lonely Winter 100% of the time. All it means is that, yeah, you don't have a water elemental, but you do a huge amount more damage, and in the logs it's proven that this will overtake the other two in pretty much every situation in the current raid. Ray of Frost is not that great. It's a channel, but what you don't want to be channeling. You want to be casting as many frost bolts as you can to get as many procs of your Ice Lance and your Flurry. And Bone Chilling was good back when we didn't get the haste, or we didn't have the right stats back at the start of the expansion. But now that we've got all these big stats, and we're going to get even bigger stats with the upcoming raid, Bone Chilling is going to be even more useless. So we're going to be wanting to go for the Lonely Winter. Second talents, kind of quality of life talents. I will pretty much always take Shimmer in this situation. 2 blinks is absolutely incredible. I like to bind. What I like to do with my mobility spells is I like to bind them to my mouse, and I've recently done this, and I really recommend you do too. So you can really move around, and you'll find that if you can move around quicker, you actually do more DPS. It's kind of like a quality of life that really increases your DPS. So Shimmer, yeah, it's probably the best to go for. You can go for Ice Flows, or you can go for this one. I don't even want to try and pronounce it. I watched my last video and my pronunciations are terrible, so I'm just gonna skip it if I can. But this one, let's try it. Glacial Insulation is good if you're about to take a huge amount of damage. Although it's kind of armor, it's not really that great. Honestly, Shimmer is going to come out better most of the time. With the 45 talents, Incantator's Flow is better than the other two. Again, Rune of Power is good. It's annoying to use. Mages will know. Say if you're playing Arcane, or you've played a Mage spec back in previous expansions, Rune of Power is a horrible thing to play because you're pretty much tied to this one spot if you actually want to do good DPS. Incantator's Flow, it's better for the playstyle of the Mage, where you're going to be moving about, especially before in the Nighthold. Incantator's Flow is really good because of the double Ice Lance glitch. Now that doesn't exist anymore, but it's still Incantator's Flow that is taking over right now. This could change. This could change. Lonely Winter, I don't see changing. I see that as being the go-to talent for the rest of the expansion, but don't take my word for this. This could change, but at the current time I'm making this video, Incantator's Flow is currently the strongest on the logs. On other specs it's different. In fact, Arcane it's Rune of Power, and on Fire it's Mirror Image. So this is all subject to change. These are all quite balanced. Feel free to use what you want, but I'd recommend Incantator's Flow. The level 60 talents. Now, this all depends on the fight. If it's got absolutely no other add in there, Frozen Touch is going to beat it, of course, because Splitting Ice won't have any. It won't really have any extra benefit. Frozen Touch will do a little bit more, because you get a bit more chance to get Fingers of Frost. You know, it's a really good talent. Ice Nova, not so great. I wouldn't use that. Yeah, but Frozen Touch, very good on pure single target. So Goroth is going to be Frozen Touch. Maiden, Frozen Touch. But any other boss, so if there's an ad involved, especially if the ad's, you know, quite permanent or it sticks around for a while, so like Demonic Inquisition, like Avatar, like Maiden, where there's ads pretty much the whole time. Harjatan as well, you know, where there's ads quite a lot of the time, Splitting Ice is going to easily come out on top, and this is where you're going to get huge burst from as well, because your Ice Lances are already doing so much damage, but if you're hitting 2 of them at the same time for the price of 1, you're going to see huge damage, and this is where Frost Mage really shines. So Splitting Ice, now if I was to go through the whole raid and not change, I'd go for Splitting Ice, but honestly just switch between. You're going to want to switch your talents as a Frost Mage, but not that much. It's not that big of a deal. Pretty much this, and there's another one that you're going to want to change every now and then, but that's about it. 75 talents, just quality of life. You can pick whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. Probably Ice Ward might show some sort of benefit, maybe, but it's not that big of a deal. The 90 talents, Frostbomb you don't really use. It's just not as beneficial as the other two. Now again, this comes in with the Splitting Ice. If you're changing one, you're probably going to change the other. On pure single target, you're going to be using the Unstable Magic with Frostbolt. That has a 20% chance to explode on impact. So it's a tiny, well, it's not really tiny, it's a decent DPS increase, right? So you're pretty much every 20%, you're getting a 15% increase on your Frostbolt, 50% damage increase on your Frostbolt. So it's good, but it's not like incredible or anything like that. And you got Arctic Gale, which increases Blizzard's damage by 30% and its area effect by 20%. Now, you're going to want to take this even if there's only one target. If there's one extra target, you might be thinking, oh, Blizzard's an AoE ability, why would I even use that if there's only 2? You know, surely Frostbolt will do more, but you'll see why. Blizzard is actually really good. Even if there's only one more target and you can hit both of them with Blizzard, Blizzard becomes much more beneficial to use over Frostbolt. And the 100 talents, there's always people want to be able to use Glacial Spike. Comet Storm's not really seen much of the light for this whole expansion, and it won't. But Thermal Void, even though with the nerfs that happened to it, is still on top. Thermal Void is incredible. It used to be absolutely insane, but it's still incredible. It just means that you get really strong periods of burst, really a huge amount of damage you can get from Thermal Void. So these are pretty much the talents I go for. So pretty much single target, you're going to want to look like this, and any AoE or multi-target, you're going to want to look like this. Let's go into the legendaries. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go open like this. Now, there are 2 legendaries that have pretty much, if you look at the logs right now for Mythic, there are 2 legendaries that everyone's using and they don't switch, apart from on interrupt bosses where Cephas' Secret does come in handy. But pretty much the 2 legendaries you want to go for are the Shard of the Exodar right now, as this stands right now, again, subject to change. I'm just going off what I see from the logs. But the Shard of the Exodar and Magfodon's Banished Braces, these are the 2 that you want to be using. That doesn't mean that the other legendaries are bad. They're all pretty much well-rounded now compared to the start of the expansion. But right now, these 2 are going to provide the biggest bang for your buck. Magfodon's Banished Braces, pretty much your Ice Lance increases damage of all Ice Lances by 3% stacking up. So it basically increases the damage of your hardest hitting ability. So it's a really strong DPS increase. It also has the haste on it. The Mastery is okay. What you're going to find out is that once you hit your crit cap, your Mastery becomes it becomes good anyway. So if you got your crit cap, this is really good. And the Shard of the Exodar, it's got the crit and haste, so it's already got the 2 best stats for you. Huge amount of crit, so you're going to be really close to that crit cap if you've got this equipped. If not, if you haven't already got it, and you get the double time warp, which increases the burst that you get. So especially if you're using time warp at the start of a fight, you know, you're using all your burst, all your procs. You know, you've got a pre-pot on that time warp, and then you get all your burst back 2 minutes later, and then you can go for another time warp and use your other pot and use everything else, and you get 2 huge bursts. So that's really good. Some notable ones is the Lady Vash's Grips. So while Ice Veins are active, you gain 1 charge of Figures of Frost. This used to be the best in slot back when you could have infinite Icy Veins. Not the case anymore. It's still very good, so don't be disheartened if you got this. This is incredible. I'm trying to have a look. Cephas' Secret does prove to be quite good. Paradise is also a really good stat stick to have. Casting 15 Frostbolts of Flow cooldown. Yeah, pretty much these are the ones you want to be looking. The real good ones right now you want to be looking at is the Magfuridan's Banished Braces, Shard of the Exodar, Lady Vash's Grips, and in some situations Cephas is actually quite good. So those are the ones you want to be going for. Okay, what we're looking at next, we're going to go through the items. Now the items that are proving to be the strongest right now. Again, I'm going to keep going on to what is strongest right now because I really want to give you guys facts rather than kind of more opinion based. So the strongest items right now, I'm going to talk mainly about trinkets here. Is the first one is the let's have a look, the Terror from Below. I'm pretty sure that comes from Harjatan, so I'm going to link it. I'm going to show you right now. It's not Terror from Below, is it? Where'd you get Terror from Below? Yeah, of course I've lost. There we go. There we go. So basically, what Terror from Below, it's really good, especially because it's got the crit, but also the effect on it. It procs quite a lot, and it does a decent amount of damage. Terror from Below is actually proven to be really strong. It's quite a not many classes actually need the Terror from Below, so if it drops, you're quite likely to get it, especially if you're in a guild. You want to aim for this Terror from Below. I don't have this. I'm trying to kind of get the Mage as close as I can to as best as I can for the video, but I can't exactly do it. I don't main the Mage, I main the Warlock, but I've got as close to the items as I can. I've got the 2 Legendaries that you want to be equipping to show you the rotation later. But yeah, you can get the Terror from Below, and the other best. So if you want to go for 2, you want to go for the Terror from Below, and you also want to go for the Tarnished Sentinel Medallion, which drops from Sisters, isn't it? No, this is just, it's got Mastery on it, which is also a decent stat for you, but the on-use effect as well is just really good. The Owl does quite a lot of damage, so this is quite a good one. Now, a lot of people are using the Whispers in the Dark as well. Whispers in the Dark, obviously, it's a great trinket. If you can get a Titan Forge Whispers in the Dark, and it's around the same level as your Tarnished Sentinel Medallion, it's up to you. I'd sim it if I were you. It depends what stacks of your gear the best. Right now, the Sentinel Medallion is looking a tiny bit stronger, but Whispers in the Dark is also really, really viable. And haste stat sticks are incredible. So if you want to go for a haste stat stick, Unstable Arcana Crystal's great. It's not as good as it is for a lot of classes. A lot of classes, the Unstable Arcana Crystal's best in slot, but it's still a very good trinket to have. So pretty much you can kind of, you're free to roam with the trinkets, but the best possible 2 by the logs are the Sentinel Medallion and the Terror from Below. So those are the 2 you want to be aiming for. They're quite easy to obtain, so you don't really have much trouble there. We're going to go through the 4 set. So the 4 set's incredible. The Frozen Orb increases the critical strike damage by 20% for 10 seconds. So that's good. You've already got a decent amount of crit, but you get even more, so that's good. The 4 set is what you're really aiming for, and the cooldown of the Frozen Orb is reduced by 4 seconds whenever you gain Brain Freeze. So this is good. So what you're doing is you're essentially lowering the cooldown of your Frozen Orb every time you get a Brain Freeze proc, right? So that's when Flurry lights up, and you use that, and then after that, obviously, you want to go for the Ice Lance. We'll talk about the rotation in a second. So as soon as Flurry lights up and you use it, that's a Brain Freeze proc, and you're going to get a cooldown reduction on your Frozen Orb, which in turn, when you use your Frozen Orb, gives you procs on your Ice Lance. So you see how it's working now. So you kind of want to keep your Frozen Orb. You want to use your Frozen Orb on cooldown, of course, but with this 4 set, you're going to be able to use it more, increasing your DPS. It's a huge DPS increase. I highly recommend the 4 set. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all we need to go for on gear-wise. I'm trying to think if there's anything more important, but there doesn't seem to be anything that I'm really missing that is that important. We're going to go through the stat priority. So as you can see right now, I am at 32% crit. Now, it's not ideal. What you want to be really is you want to be at 33% crit. This is when crit becomes its most effective. After that, crit is okay to have, but it's not as good as haste or mastery, especially haste. You want to be stacking haste as soon as you hit the 33% cap on crit. You'll find that any class that really needs crit kind of has a cap, and then after that once you get enough crit, it becomes more, not a dead stat, but it doesn't become as useful. So fire mages, I think it's like 55 or 60% crit, and then there's loads of other classes, but 33% crit cap is the most effective one to go for with the frost mage, so highly recommend that. And then after that, you kind of want to go stacking all in haste. That's what I'd recommend. No need to mess around. If you don't want to sim, just stack haste. if you're at the dilemma where you've got a haste and mastery piece or a haste and versatility piece, you want to pick mastery over versatility, but that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's just go through it. Crit 33%, and then after that it becomes haste over mastery over versatility, and that's gonna be how your stats should look. Okay, so we're just going to talk about the rotation quick, because it's not really a rotation to it. It's not like the Affliction Warlock where you're just maintaining dots and then you're what's it called, bringing them up. You're bringing them off. You're sucking them out with the Drain Soul. It's not really a rotation. It's more, oh, if this procs, I'm going to use this now. It's an unpredictable spec, but it's very simple to manage. It's very easy to use. Very easy to master. So what we're going to start off with in a what's it called, in a raid fight. So let me just take a drink. So obviously what you want to do with the frost mages, you're going to pre-pot, and you want to pre-cast with any spellcaster you want to pre-cast. So we're just going to pre-cast Frostbolt. It's just a tiny DPS increase. It can give us a proc, which could be a decent DPS increase, so you always want to go for the pre-cast. With the pre-pot, you want to use your trinkets, obviously, at the start when you get a time warp. But we'll go into the main rotation. So your filler spell is Frostbolt. That's going to give you procs of either Ice Lance or Brain Freeze. Your Ebon Bolt is your artifact ability. That's going to do a decent amount of damage, and it's also going to give you a Brain Freeze proc. When you get a Brain Freeze proc, I'll show you something now. So as you can see, I've used Ebon Bolt. I've got a Brain Freeze proc. You're going to see this in the top. When you get a Brain Freeze proc, as soon as you're going to put a debuff on the enemy, right? So I'm going to use it now. You're going to put a debuff on the enemy. You can see it just there. It's called Winter's Chill. Basically, what Winter's Chill does is it makes it so that your next Ice Lance is going to do a huge amount of damage, just as if Ice Lance if we got an Ice Lance proc. As soon as you use Flurry with the Brain Freeze proc, you're going to use Ice Lance straight after for the increased damage. So you've got to remember to do that. So what you want to be doing is you want to prioritize your Ice Lance procs over your Flurry procs, because if you're using a Flurry proc, whilst you already have Ice Lance procs, you're pretty much wasting an Ice Lance proc because you're already going to be doing huge damage anyway. But so I'll show you a situation right now. Let me get an Ice Lance proc. Of course we get a Flurry proc. So I'm just going to keep spraying Frostbolt until we get an Ice Lance proc. I should have really used Frozen Orb, but here we go. Okay, so what you see here, right, is that I'm going to use Ice Lance, Flurry, and then Ice Lance. And that's gonna do the most DPS. If I was to use Flurry then Ice Lance, I would have only been able to get the I would have got the Flurry damage in. I would have got the and then I would have been able to use the one Ice Lance rather than the two Ice Lances, which is a huge DPS loss over the course of a fight. So you prioritize your Ice Lance procs over your Flurry procs. It's quite confusing when you think about it, but if you when I talk about it, but if you really think about it, it makes sense and you'll get used to it. Okay, so you've got two spells that will guarantee you procs pretty much. Your Ebon Bolt will guarantee you a Flurry proc, and it's not really guaranteed, but you're pretty much with Frozen Orb, you're going to get loads and loads of procs of Ice Lance. Now we're going to revert back to when I mentioned the whole Arctic Gale thing. So along with our 4 set, we can reduce the cooldown of our Frozen Orb. So does our Blizzard. Our Blizzard reduces the cooldown of Frozen Orb. The more targets you hit, the faster the cooldown of Frozen Orb is going to come off. This becomes effective if there's more than one target. On single target, no, you're not going to use Frozen Orb. It's not going to be effective enough. It's not going to do enough damage. You're going to be having a DPS loss. But as soon as another target becomes involved, even if the target's up for a few seconds, you're going to want to Blizzard it straight away. This is going to be the DPS increase. If there's loads of targets up, then Blizzard's going to be huge. You're going to realise that your Frozen Orb comes straight off cooldown. Almost not instantly, but very, very quickly, and you can really go into kind of the spam. So you can go to the Ice Lance spam. Icy Veins, pretty much haste increased, really good, and you're going to want to keep it up for as long as you can. What I like to do is, a lot of people start the fight with Icy, they just start the fight by just casting Icy Veins and then just going into their rotation. What I like to do is I like to go open with Frostbolt, go into Frozen Orb, Icy Veins, like that, and then with Flurry. Sometimes you can't help hitting the Flurry proc with the Ice proc. And this is how I like to do my rotation. So I like to get as much time as I can with the procs. Now I'm being very unlucky with procs. Usually you get a lot more. Notice here, Ice Lance, Flurry, Ice Lance, and that's really the main part of the rotation. So Flurry, Ice Lance. I hit the Ice Lance there, of course. But that's how you want to do it. So Flurry, Ice Lance, and as soon as you get Ice Lance procs, you can save them, but it's okay to use them. It really doesn't matter too much. Flurry, Ice Lance. Frozen Orb, here we go, 2 Ice Lance procs. You want to use them as soon as possible if you get 2. I'm going to put in an instant, I forgot to mention as well. It's good to use Blizzard whilst you got Frozen Orb up because it's instant cast, so you can use it. It really suits your playstyle. If it suits your playstyle, I suggest to use it. And you want to use Haven't Got Bolt on cooldown so you get the Brain Freeze. And that's pretty much it. It's really simple rotation. You just go into, and Frostbolt is your filler spell, so you can use Frostbolt. We've got a Brain Freeze proc. We're going to go Ice Lance, Brain Freeze, Ice Lance, and Frostbolt. We've got a Frozen Orb. Cast the Frostbolt, then go for the Frozen Orb. Ice Lance, Flurry, Ice Lance. Really simple. We've got an instant cast Blizzard, Ice Lance, Flurry, Ice Lance. Now here I haven't got any thing on. I've got pretty mediocre gear, and I'm doing a solid 900k single target. It will be much better than mine. If you're really looking at playing this spec, you're going to do a huge amount of damage. Remember, you got Shimmer, so you got really great mobility as a mage. You've got no excuse to get hit by shit. It's really easy to avoid stuff. You've also got a really good damage reduction as Ice Barrier. You can keep it up permanently because it lasts for a minute and it's a 25-second cooldown. So you can pretty much keep it up. Any downtime of the boss, I'd suggest definitely putting that up. You're never really going to use Frost Nova or Cone of Cold. You're not going to find a situation where you want to do it. With your Time Warp Legendary, make sure you're not the one casting Time Warp. You want to have a Shaman or another Mage using Time Warp. Unless the fight's more than 5 minutes, then of course you can do it twice, like Gul'dan back in the last raid. But really, you don't want to be using Time Warp if you've got the Legendary. I'm trying to think if there's anything I've missed. I'm not too sure. I don't think there is. That pretty much covers it. So we're just going to go... I could do a quick cleave guide now. I don't know whether you ever... There we go. Can we do these? Yeah, we can do these. Okay, so what I like to do is... for cleave is pretty much just what you want to do is you want to open a Frostbolt and then you go with the Frozen Orb, and then you can pretty much just go into your Ice Lance spam. You see it's hitting twice. It's doing huge damage. And we can go for another instant cast Blizzard, and it's just going to be doing a huge amount of damage as well. Bolt, but as soon as I hit the Brain Freeze just before the Bolt hits, so I get the 2 Brain Freezes, not losing DPS, and then we're just going to Frostbolt spam. But you want to be using Blizzard on the cooldown if there's 2 targets, and that's going to provide the biggest bang for your buck on the DPS. And also, obviously, you want to be using Frozen Orb on cooldown. So it's going to look something like this. So, oops, like that. And then you want to just be using the Ice Lances for the biggest damage. Blizzard on cooldown. It's instant cast whilst you've got Frozen Orb up. So you really haven't got an excuse not to be using it. It's really useful. Really easy to pull off. This is kind of what it's going to be looking like. But yeah, that will be it for the Frost Mage. If there's any questions, feel free to ask. Like I said, if there's any recommendations you want for the channel, it doesn't just have to be guides. I can do anything on WoW. So just give me just put a comment down in the description asking me what you want to see from me. I'll happily carry out anything you want me to do. Any classes you want me to do, any classes you want me to make a video of, happily again I'll make a video. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all. I just want to thank again everyone for subscribing, especially. In one video currently I'm at 3,500 views and 23 subscribers. I am counting, but I really want to thank all of you for the support, all the kind comments that I got, and I'll be sure to make more content for you if that's what you want. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you guys later.